All right, welcome to This Explainer. Today, we are pulling back the curtain on a side of football you rarely see. You know, we constantly see the multi-million-dollar transfers, the flashy endorsement deals, the superstars on the pitch, but there is an entire billion-dollar global industry operating very quietly right behind the scenes.
So let's just address the elephant in the room and ask the exact question on every fan's mind when the transfer window swings open. What on earth is an agent actually doing back there? Are they just ruthless power brokers making demands, or is there a whole lot more to the gig?
Well, for starters, we're talking about massive financial stakes here. Usually, agents pull in a 3 to 10% commission on a player's salary or their transfer fee. And with modern transfers routinely smashing past the 100 million mark, the earnings for a top agent can be absolutely staggering. But look, that payout doesn't just fall into their laps. It takes intense negotiation, a deep understanding of the sport, and managing basically every single aspect of a player's life.
To really wrap our heads around this, we're going to break this explainer down into a 5-part playbook. First, the modern football agent. Then, what agents should never do. The real day-to-day job, the art of signing players, and finally, building the player's brand. Starting right off with Section 1, the modern football agent, and regulating the industry. This really sets the baseline for everything.
Now, if you only read the tabloids, you might think the agency game is the literal Wild West. But actually, scratch that. It is highly regulated. You can't just wake up and declare yourself an agent anymore. FIFA mandates some seriously rigorous exams. They've set up the FIFA clearinghouse to force financial transparency, and they've even brought back the agents' chamber and dispute resolution chambers just to keep things fair. It's a heavily structured, professionalized environment now.
Moving right along to Section 2, what agents should never do, separating the myth from the reality.
Before we get into the good stuff, we have to talk about the red flags. Look, if an agent is sitting in a living room guaranteeing a kid minutes on the pitch or promising a definite move to a specific dream club run the other way, that's a massive red flag. A real agent simply cannot guarantee outcomes because at the end of the day, the clubs and managers hold the power. The real green flags? It's an agent who facilitates the tough discussions, creates opportunities, and is actually willing to lose out on a commission if a move isn't the best thing for the player's long-term career.
And there's a really clear divide in how this plays out on the ground. You've got your bottom-tier agents, maybe treating it as a side hustle, who will literally spam sporting directors with thousands of emails, just hoping for a bite. It's totally transactional. But the super agents? They know this entire industry runs on relationships. They spend years, literally years, building genuine trust with club staff, figuring out exactly what a squad needs before they ever pitch a player.
All right, let's hit Section 3, the real day-to-day job, beyond the pitch. What are these guys doing on a random Tuesday? Take a look at this quote from German international Julian Draxler. He talks about having his agent by his side since he was 15. Before the fame, before anyone knew his name. That level of absolute trust is everything. A top player needs their agent to handle all that background noise so they can just lace up their boots and focus on the game. Because when you break down the actual responsibilities, an agent wears so many hats. It starts with high-level career strategy like, does this young player need a loan out to a lower division to toughen up, or are they ready for the main stage? It involves relentless communication with sporting directors, tricky contract negotiations, and then it extends deep into day-to-day care and crisis management. And let me tell you, that day-to-day care is hands-on. We're talking finding houses, sorting out cars, handling massive international relocations. But more crucially, they have to be the very first phone call during a crisis. A brutal injury, a sudden club rejection, a messy divorce, the agent is right there. And a truly great agent knows their limits. They know exactly when to step back and bring in the specialized doctors, the lawyers, or the sports psychologist to actually get their client the right help.
Which brings us to Section 4, the art of signing players and building trust. Let's see how agencies actually acquire the talent that keeps the lights on.
So how do you find this talent? Well, there's absolutely no single rulebook. Look at these two real-world examples from FIFA agent Samuel Morat. You've got Tad, right? He was signed the traditional way, an industry tip-off followed by a grueling 5-day summer evaluation camp just to test his grit. But then, look at Reggie, a highly sought-after academy prospect who actually reached out to the agency himself because he and his family had been watching their transparent, behind-the-scenes content on YouTube. It really shows how modern agencies have to use every single tool at their disposal, from intense old-school scouting to clever social media.
And Mura hits the nail on the head right here. Do not overpromise. When you're sitting with a young player's family, the temptation to promise the world is huge, but making it to the pro leagues is incredibly tough. The best agents in the business? They manage expectations. They set realistic goals, and then they absolutely work their tails off to overdeliver, rather than selling some impossible dream.
Finally, let's jump into Section 5, building the player's brand and securing off-field revenue.
These days, the job definitely doesn't stop when the final whistle blows. Agents have practically become full-on PR managers and commercial directors. They're navigating complex name, image, and likeness rights, setting up high-end fashion collaborations, and building a targeted social media presence. For the elite guys, this off-field revenue is just as important and sometimes even more lucrative than the actual football contract. Plus, it sets them up with a rock-solid business for when they eventually hang up their boots.
A brilliant example of this, look at Cole Palmer teaming up with Burberry. That's not just a random logo slap, that is strategic synergy. By aligning a rising, incredibly cool English star with a legacy British heritage brand, the agent creates an authentic partnership that elevates the player from just an athlete into a true global cultural icon. To pull that off, specialized commercial agents within these firms run a tight daily playbook. They're constantly developing new business, pitching the player's unique story to brands, they're maintaining their massive networks, and, this is key, they're actually delivering the assets. They're the ones organizing the photo shoots and making absolutely sure the player hits their social media deliverables on time. It is a full-on corporate job running right alongside the player's time on the pitch.
So, to wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a bit of a provocative question. We've seen how agencies have morphed into these massive global powerhouses that basically manage a player's entire existence, from their mental health all the way to their high-fashion deals. As players increasingly become their own individual global megabrands managed by these super agencies, who really holds the ultimate power in the beautiful game? Is it the clubs writing the paychecks, or the agents pulling the strings? It's wild to think about. Thanks so much for joining me on this deep dive, and keep learning.